Okay, so as part of the Building Beauty School, I proposed that we start a parallel seminar, which I call Beautiful Software, that's intended to attract computer people into the world of building things the way that we're all trying to get people to build things. So first I'm going to start with my only negative slide. There's so many problems with the computer industry. All of our industries are making the wrong things in the wrong ways. Building Beauty, of course, is focused on helping the building industry to change. And the Beautiful Software Initiative piece that we're starting this year, we're focused on helping the computer industries to change. And we found a way to sort of couple these things together by having the software people take building classes, and we just do something else, which I will describe in a moment, on the side. So why are we doing this? And most computer people wouldn't have would have a million answers to the question of why do we need to improve the computer industry, or at least what they do. I've been in computing for over 45 years. I'm very critical. Actually, Doug Schuler and I curate. I guess it's mostly me because I'm the one who gets angriest, I suppose. But curate a Facebook page called Responsible Computing, where basically every story that gets posted about something awful the computer industry does is analyzed. And it's an extremely destructive industry, and I think most people don't know quite how destructive it has been over the century. High-tech corporations now, of course, serve as the core of increasing inequality, militarism, managerialism, extraction from the environment, exploitation of labor, imperialism, and then just this sort of mental problem of unchecked technocratic positivism that seems to be dogging us in almost every wicked problem that we are confronted with. This is the page, in case you ever want to go. We call it Responsible Computing. Over the years as an activist, I've found the best way to make change is to fight the bad stuff while you're creating the good stuff. And if you do both, industrious people can't accuse you of just being negative, which is something they want to do. Like, well, you're trying to tear down my project, which is creating all these jobs and, doing other incidental bad stuff. Well, if you create alternatives or create good things at the same time, then they can't say that you're like, doing nothing to solve the problems that they think that they're solving with their destructive activity. And so, and on the other hand, you have to fight the bad, because the critics of destruction, people who are involved in the fight against, all the bad things that we just mentioned, can't accuse you of avoiding the fight and just sort of like staying in your walled garden and building beautiful things. So you have to do both. So software, what is good software? Well, there's two kinds of definitions of good. People use the word good for lots of different things. So I'm going to start with two. Software that's built to do good in the world, software that's created in free collaboration with like-minded people, software that helps people to become whole and creates things with feeling and beauty in life, software that helps communities to, at the grassroots and in a democratic sort of bottom-up fashion, work in a self-directed manner towards a better life, that kind of thing. And then there's another kind of good that is very much attached to the nature of order kind of work. And that's and to many of the presentations today. And that's good as defined by, and good and beautiful as defined by the perception of natural structure. This is an innate ability we have to perceive things that are biological and natural. We can look at two things and actually sort of determine that one is a living thing or was a living thing, as opposed to things that we know are similar in shape but are cartoons or maybe functionally generated or other sorts of things. We can tell the difference, and we have this innate ability to tell the difference. And one of the things we're trying to do is get people to use this ability to detect natural and beautiful and biological things with their actual day-to-day work, and put that feeling that they have more central in their work. At the moment, it tends to be overwhelmed by other sorts of things that are, other kinds of, stimulus, other kinds of cognitive problems. There are all kinds of things that that basically make this innate ability to see nature kind of go to the background, and we want to move it to the foreground. And make it used to do things, including building software. I was going to say there's no mathematical characterization of natural structure yet, although it's a work in progress, and it was obviously a big issue for Chris. And but in any case, we can approach it through psychological techniques. It's sort of our access to it, as we can use ourselves as a meter to try to determine what it is that we do. What it is that we do when we recognize something as being natural. I have an article about that here if you're interested. So software that helps people to become whole and create things with feeling. So it's a seminar attached to the Building Beauty program. The computer people will take the seminar. They'll do the built environment core course. They'll discover for themselves this innate ability to recognize and connect with natural structure. It's best learned while working on these kinds of tangible projects in the built environment. It's very hard to do metaphorically before you've done it in reality. The tangibility of doing real creative work with your hands, if you will, is very important. And it's, of course, it's needed because feeling is really sorely underused in the computer world. I do believe it is used. Whenever people say, oh, this is better than that, they're kind of touching on it for a moment. But it's not at the core of computer work. But there are lots of distractions in the computer world: money, power politics, fashions, all kinds of things. And my belief is that, and this was a belief that Chris and I shared, is that if programmers were allowed to put feeling at the center of what it is they do in the world, then there would be a different kind of computer industry. By the way, where does this come from? Why do I think feeling is could help to redirect technology? Why do I want to get involved in making this, making system A replace system B in this domain? I'm an ecological community activist. I met Chris because, although I'm a computer person, I met Chris because I wrote about him in RAIN. It's a journal that chronicles successful community projects, the patterns needed to create a better, more ecological, more fair civilization. And every project that I studied led me to start or help with similar projects: bicycle building schools, cooperatives, dance halls, incubators, all kinds of things, and a partnership with Chris to use computing to improve the way we tackle the built environment. This is RAIN Magazine. It's online at rainmagazine.com. And these are two of my most complex community development projects: the Center for Appropriate Transport, the Bike Center, and the Tango Center, which was a downtown social environment. And so in 1995, although the computer industry had been interested in Chris's work since the 60s, in the mid-90s, the object-oriented programmers were very interested in the ideas of patterns and pattern language. This was a little difficult for Chris because he felt that concentration on patterns and pattern languages could get you quite far away from the main point, the thing that actually gives you patterns and pattern language. I'll paraphrase this concern. The point isn't patterns or pattern language. The point is the method by which we discover patterns or do anything good at all, by using our feeling for natural structure to connect with the life in something and to give it more life still. And really that is sort of needed in order to even make coherence out of an application of patterns. And so that's, so we wanted to sort of go past what where the computer people were at. And this is our attempt now, 25 years later, to pull the computer people into that side of Chris's work rather than into the pattern and pattern language side of it, which they've already spent decades doing. But at the time, we felt we should seize upon their interest and get funding. So we wanted to build an application that would help people to make beauty in the world. What does it look like? Well, it was GateMaker, and it's a joyous, playful, unrestricted. It provides and yet it provides structure. It brings the user through a series of steps in a richly structured unfolding sequence, and a very well written one by Chris that simply produces. It does nothing more really than simply produces a beautiful, personal, rough design for a gate on a photograph. And this is sort of what it looks like when you're doing it. It gives you a workspace that looks something like this. And on the left-hand side there, you can see the 17, well, there's only 16 visible, the 17 steps that you would go through to build a gate. And these are kind of, each step is a kind of an application of the 15 properties, if you will, that's in order, because these things have to be done in a particular order in order to have a smooth unfolding of a gate. On the other hand, they're not said as instructions, they're said as sort of declarations, like this is the sort of thing you should see at this time. And they're presented as steps between your work. We replace the work screen with screens that look like this. Space above the wall, this is step 8. The line along the top of the wall, 2, makes the sky a beautiful shape, etc. There's 17 of these, and then you go back to your drawing. And you continue to work through this, and very quickly you make a gate. If you want to understand that, just watch this 8-minute demonstration on YouTube. So, so in exchange for this, though, we promised that we would say what we learned by doing GateMaker for the computer industry. That is, how is this useful for computing? Although we had done it for the built environment, the computer people want to know, well, how would this help computing? And they didn't like what they heard. Basically, we said that, you know, software has to put feeling in the middle. It must be built to respect people's feelings, their desires for a better reality, and that's true for the users and the developers and the people making decisions. Really who should, in a sense, also be involved, you know, cooperatively in a kind of non-hierarchical way, and making the kinds of things that that everybody agrees to make. So the way to start is put human feeling for life and nature in the center of decision making during the act of software development. So there were 2 strains of consequences after the GateMaker project. One in computing. I actually started I was in the Bay Area, and I started a Palo Alto startup during the dot-com boom, WorkSpot, with dozens of projects, all of which were very much informed by the kind of process that Chris had brought us through in GateMaker. He actually visited us down there a few times. And the main innovation was basically that engineers could decide upon the next most important thing that they could do to benefit the world. So they could do it, come back, talk about it the next day, analyze what they'd done, and make the next decision about the next most important thing they could do in the world is this fundamental process that Chris describes. And it would, of course, drive the managers or owners of a company crazy, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something that should be freeing and allow people to do incremental development in the public interest by themselves. Here's a number of the projects. I was just looking for screenshots of products that I built during this time, but there were 50 of them. After the dot-com crash, I started trying to apply unfolding sequences to programs, and basically ended up making something like tutorials. And what I found was that if you used an unfolding sequence, you could determine how smoothly you could do work in a programming environment, which was really quite an interesting thing. And so I developed some tooling. This from the left to right here, you're looking at basically a cartoon of the structure of the program at different stages from the beginning to the end on the right. And you can go to corememory.com and look at the example program that I used then. I found I had to also create a programming environment for allowing you to edit these things, because as you're making the sequence smoother and smoother, it's very difficult to kind of keep track of where you are, because you're constantly eliminating these eliminating the things down the tree that you're changing up the tree. And so I created a way that you can sort of keep track of it all and just edit it as sort of a single file, which actually I called SUPL. It's an editing sequencing tool. This also led to a grammar-oriented language, which I called Grogix, which lets you basically more easily make programs from sequences. But that never it's still around, but it isn't really used even by me. And then the final thing is I got involved in thinking about cognition in software. Most of the meaning that engineers assign to the things in their programs is in their own minds, and it's not in the machines themselves. And that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of confusion and fashion orientation in the computer industry, and also why people very quickly become confused by their own software. because in a sense, if feeling and life was a first principle for software developers in their own environments, clarity would be automatic, because it's one of those things that makes, lack of clarity makes you uncomfortable, and a number of other kinds of things in their computing environments that make them uncomfortable would be unacceptable. And so that's an important thing to be working on in the future. The second strain, computing in the built environment. So the first thing we tried was, in the .com boom, was patternlanguage.com, which was intended to use the web. It was really our first, because GateMaker wasn't a web-based tool, although it was a Java applet. We didn't put it on the web at that time. Patternlanguage.com was to give tools, all kinds of tools and examples and information to people around the world to help them to build a better world. An online version of pattern language, sequences for all kinds of things at all kinds of scales. And we wanted to build an online community using patterns and sequences to link builders with people who needed something built, to create a kind of like a marketplace for people whose work was constrained by beauty, if you will. That only went so far. Chris also wanted to have a site where there were tools for the actual work that CES was doing with particular communities to help them to build their projects or build their communities in a lot of cases, or fix things in their neighborhood, etc. And basically Living Neighborhoods was a set of tools that would be used with CES facilitation that would help communities to self-manage as much as possible. Then one of the things I did was created a social network. This was with funding from a foundation, a Meteor Foundation, a social network for community self-organizing with group decision-making tools. It was called Community Projects, basically community self-organized projects. And this was just to try to get the kinds of things that we know work in community organizing available as an online tool. This is quite early stuff. Facebook wasn't, although there were social networks, none of them certainly were oriented towards helping communities to run projects. And so this was, you could create projects, sub-projects, that you could create relationships between projects, and community buy-in would happen. Just as an example, suggestions, this is one page on the left, suggestions for fundraising. Everybody votes on the fundraising ideas that they have that they like the most. But somebody says, wait, I know how to do that thing, auctions. And so then we organize the auction on another page. So this was the kind of thing that community projects did. It allowed communities to self-organize projects. The second thing was urbanology, which is a very different, more ambitious, maybe too ambitious kind of project. Which you have something you want to do. You want to build a community center, for example. You have to find your site. You have to find examples everywhere that can help to inform you. You have to do organizing. It has GateMaker built into it, and this is sort of what it looks like. You end up with a project page similar to community projects, but you have you're trying to build a film center here, for example. You have site photos. It's integrated with Google Street View and Google Maps, and basically allows you to sort of focus and concentrate and build a thing in one place, and it's done online so that other people can do it. It needs more work. It's still a good idea. It's something that Chris and I had talked about in the 90s. So what is beautiful software? So, I really do think that patterns and pattern languages in a group design environment is not everything that you can do. You can do much more. I think it's possible to actually give people the tools to build something with feeling, to build things that have beautiful shapes, to have things that apply the 15 properties. One of the things we found is that you can even get people to have agreements when a group does GateMaker step by step. And so, and that's actually a group design by the end. It's really quite fascinating, and it's quite beautiful at the end of it. So, and that's just one tool. We need to actually make these things more robust. We want computer people to join us. And so we're having them take the building course and then try to build better applications for people to recognize their abilities and to, so I want the software people to do basically what I did, to get involved in building stuff, to be interested in public interest work, and then to start building tools cooperatively under the banner of building beauty. That's what the Building Beautiful Software program is. And one of our first programmers is well, one of the first problems is how you develop a feeling for feeling. And one of the first tools that we know works is the mirror of the self test. It's basically something to, get people's feet wet in connecting to different kinds of human artifacts. And it's a comparison test. It's a survey full of pairs that is a set of comparison tests. And Tomaž Žlender, who's joined us, wanted to create this particular app and has made 2 different versions of it. And I'm going to show you the most recent version.
Mirror of Self is a web-based tool for facilitating mirror of the self tests. In its current form, it is intended to be used in the Building Beauty seminar on the nature of order, with potential to be adopted by a wider community. Let's imagine that I'm giving a lecture about finding yourself in certain kinds of human artifacts. I want the students to perform the tests on a sequence of pairs. After they are done, I want to have a group discussion about the choices they've made. I've already prepared a survey. A survey is a collection of pairs that students can perform tests on. With the students, I share a public link to the survey via a group chat or some other channel. Students open the link and start performing the tests. They reflect on the question, which of these 2 objects is a better picture of my true self if I have to select one of them? Study the pair and make a choice. After everyone is done, I share with them my screen where we overview the choices they've made. We develop a discussion about consensus or a lack of consensus about images that are a better or a worse mirror of our true selves. Next, let's take a look how to prepare such a survey. First, let's check if we already uploaded all pairs. There is one missing. Let's create it. I'll select the images from my computer. I'll add titles. And I'm done. Let's continue with creating a survey. We have to decide what pairs we want the students to perform tests on. This is what pair lists are for. Here we have a pair list and a survey that was run on this list. All surveys that are made out of the same pair list will have exactly the same tests. This comes handy when we want to make comparison studies of different demographic groups or to see how the students' choices are changing over time. Before we make a survey, we need to select an existing pair list or create a new one. In this case, let's create a new one. We want to create a pair list with pairs of images from the book Nature of Order, Phenomenon of Life, with only images of smaller artifacts, not streets or buildings and similar. After we gave it the name, we add pairs to the list. On the left side, we have pairs already on the list. On the right side, we have pairs that remain, which we can choose from. We add pairs. We reorder them. And finally, we review if we are happy with the selection. Now it's time to create a survey and share it with the students. Their experience will be the one I explained earlier. This is just one example of a use the application provides for at the moment. An early prototype of the app was already used in the program last year. Now we are maturing the app for use in wider community and for more purposes.
Now, this is not of course, a high feeling kind of thing. We had a deadline here. It was about a month to take a previous version that was working, but was not as how should we say repeatable and changeable as this version is, and this is the one that we're going to be using this year at Building Beauty. But it's just sort of an example of how when you need something in the world of trying to make a more beautiful place, it's really convenient to have programmers around. But also, the programmers, for their part, learn something about what we mean by making beautiful things, and actually can help them to to have criteria for making decisions, design decisions, programming decisions, and also maybe decisions about what to do in life, in the center of their working life. And so this is a you know, it's a, I know win-win is not popular anymore, but in any case, it works well for them, and it works well for, I think, for those of us who are trying to make more beauty happen in the world. And so that's the kind of thing that beautiful software is doing. We're going to do basically starting this October, we're going to run all these computer people through the program that we've been running in Sorrento and that we're going to be running online this year. That's it, Dan. I think I'm done.
Yes, thank you, Greg. And let's transition as quickly as we